Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where we discuss leading political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony. Today I'm filming in Auckland in my hotel room. Please forgive the informality of the environment here. The audio may also be a little bit affected, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Now, we have a lot to cover today. There's been some big developments we need to go through, so let's jump in. And first up, Nvidia, the world's most valuable company, this week reported another quarter of surging revenue, but disclosed a stark reality for one of its most important markets: zero sales of its H20 artificial intelligence chip to China. The disclosure is a naked example of how geopolitical tensions between Washington and Beijing continue to cloud the company's outlook, despite booming global demand for its processors. For the first 3 months, ending the 28th of July, Nvidia posted revenues of $46.7 billion, a 56% year-on-year jump that edged past Wall Street's consensus forecast of $46.5 billion. Net income also surged as demand for AI accelerators from United States cloud companies and global enterprises remained robust. Looking ahead, the company guided revenue of $54 billion plus or minus 2% for the third quarter, slightly above expectations of $53.8 billion. Yet shares fell more than 3% in after-hours trading as investors fixated on the company's troubled China business. Nvidia confirmed it had made no H20 sales to China in Q2 and said its Q3 forecast does not assume any shipments to the Chinese market. Quote, "We have not included H20 in our Q3 outlook as we continue to work through geopolitical issues," end quote, the company's chief financial officer told analysts, adding, quote, "If those issues resolve, we should ship $2 to $5 billion in H20 revenue in Q3. The earnings release did note a $180 million benefit from the release of previously reserved H20 inventory. This came from roughly $650 million in unrestricted H20 sales to a single customer outside China. Nvidia declined, however, to name the buyer, fueling speculation about who could be purchasing such volumes of the downgraded AI chip. The absence of Chinese sales marks a dramatic setback for the H20, which was designed specifically to comply with US export restrictions. Reports from Beijing suggest Chinese officials have branded the chip a, quote, security risk, end quote, discouraging leading technology groups such as Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, and ByteDance from buying it. We covered this in detail last week. Chief Executive Jensen Huang struck a optimistic tone, however, arguing that China still represents a $50 billion opportunity for Nvidia this year, with growth of 50% annually if the company can provide competitive products. He also said Nvidia continues to push for US government approval to sell the more advanced Blackwell chip to China. Quote, "We want the American technology stack to become the global standard," end quote, Huang said, positioning Nvidia as a champion of US technology dominance, language that resonates in Washington but grates in Beijing. Indeed, the UK-based Financial Times reported earlier this summer that Commerce Secretary Lutnick's recent blunt comments during the July approval announcement may have hardened Chinese opposition. Lutnick told CNBC, quote, "We don't sell them our best stuff, not our second best stuff, not even our third best. You want to sell the Chinese enough that their developers get addicted to the American technology stack," end quote. These remarks, described as, quote, insulting, end quote, by Chinese officials, have become a rallying point for Beijing to accelerate self-reliance. We also previously covered this development. On this point specifically, veteran China analyst Bill Bishop observed yesterday, quote, "I think Lutnick's comments just reinforce and strengthen the forces, security, bureaucratic and corporates like Huawei and SMIC, that were already pushing for ripping the Nvidia band-aid off and forcing indigenous production. Sure, lots of PRC firms want access to the best technology and don't want to be reliant on Huawei, but Jack Ma and Alibaba didn't want to go through the regulatory meat grinder. The platform companies didn't want to be rectified. The education companies didn't want their industry destroyed. But guess what? Party and security forces matter more than market forces or corporate preferences. The keep China addicted to Nvidia stack seems like just another variant of the China fantasy," end quote. Next up, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, will convene its 2025 summit in the port city of Tianjin from this coming Sunday, tomorrow, for 2 days, bringing together leaders from more than 20 countries and 10 international organizations, including the UN Secretary-General. The gathering, hosted by General Secretary Xi Jinping, is set against a backdrop of intensifying global competition over the shape of the international order. According to a press briefing from Beijing, Xi will use the summit to present, quote, China's new vision and propositions, end quote, for the SCO, pledging to carry forward the Shanghai spirit, as they put it, while addressing the mission of the times and the expectations of the people, to use Beijing's wording. He is expected to unveil new initiatives to support high-quality development across the bloc, deepen comprehensive cooperation, and chart, quote, new pathways, end quote, for the organization to safeguard the post-World War II international order while pushing reforms to global governance. Observers see the summit as a carefully orchestrated stage for China's diplomatic messaging. Quote, Xi will want to use the summit as an opportunity to showcase what a post-American-led international order begins to look like, end quote, said Eric Olander, editor-in-chief of the China Global South Project, noting that the presence of Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Modi provides, quote, powerful optics, end quote, of solidarity despite US efforts to counter Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran. The summit also reflects broader ideological ambitions. Chinese scholars have increasingly framed Xi's Global Security Initiative, GSI, not just as policy, but as a theoretical challenge to Western schools of thought in international relations such as realism and liberalism. By embedding diplomacy within Xi Jinping thought, as it's called, Beijing seeks to present its rise as that of a fundamentally different kind of global power, though whether practice matches rhetoric remains to be seen. If you want to be on top of all things China-related, including the emerging US-China Cold War, consider subscribing to China Update, hit the bell notification icon, and you will be. If you're getting some value from today's episode, it's a huge help if you can hit the like button. And for those who want to go the extra mile and help me keep China Update financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description below. Thank you so much, everyone, for the incredible ongoing support. Next up, the Chinese Communist Party's flagship newspaper has escalated its rhetoric against Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, publishing a commentary warning of the Nazification of Taiwan. The article, written by Wang Yingjin, director of the Research Center for Cross-Strait Relations at Yemen University of China in Beijing, appeared on page 12 of the People's Daily on Thursday, under the headline, Taiwan Independence Forces Dangerous Tendency Towards Nazification. Quote, since Lai Ching-te took office, the DPP authorities have fostered a green terror on the island and even attempted to restore a so-called military court system, gravely damaging the Taiwan region's democratic rule of law and human rights safeguards, end quote, Wang wrote. This is quite the accusation coming from a communist in Beijing. Wang accused the DPP of tolerating paramilitary-style civic groups. Quote, the Black Bear Regiment and Bluebird groups, they have indulged rove the island, making malicious disturbances, revealing the Taiwan Independence Force's dangerous tendency towards Nazification, end quote, the commentary added. The harsh wording comes amid growing tensions across the Taiwan Strait, which we've been following very closely here on China Update these last few years, and mirrors earlier attacks by the opposition KMT, which earlier this year stirred controversy by drawing the same comparison. Of course, many viewers will see the uncomfortable parallels to Moscow's invocation of denazification to justify its invasion of Ukraine, a linkage that raises concerns about Beijing's political signaling. The commentary concluded by citing polls showing falling approval ratings for Lai. According to TVBS, only 28% of Taiwanese were satisfied with his governance as of mid-August, while 55% were dissatisfied. That is according to this particular survey. Meanwhile, and on this broader theme, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will join Russian President Vladimir Putin and General Secretary Xi Jinping at a grand military parade in Beijing next week. A charitable reading would be seen as a symbolic display of solidarity among three leaders advocating for an alternative to the US-led global order. However, of course, many folks in Western capitals will obviously see this as the strengthening of an axis which could pose a serious military threat. perhaps the most acute since World War II itself. The parade, hosted by Xi on Wednesday, will mark the 80th anniversary of Japan's defeat in World War II. Thousands of Chinese troops will march through Tiananmen Square alongside Beijing's latest weapons systems in what will be both a commemoration of history and a projection of China's growing military power. For Kim, the event represents a significant diplomatic shift. It will be the first visit to China since 2019 and the first time he has taken part in a multilateral gathering of world leaders. Beijing confirmed his attendance on Thursday, placing him on a guest list that also includes the leaders of Iran, Pakistan, Malaysia, and Indonesia. South Korea will send the Speaker of its National Assembly, while most European leaders and US President Donald Trump will not attend. The gathering offers striking optics, but the prospect of deeper alignment could be limited. Each of the three leaders is pursuing separate negotiations with Washington. Trump has left the door open to improve ties, meeting Putin earlier this month in Alaska to discuss Ukraine and expressing interest in another summit with Kim. A meeting with Xi before the end of the year remains possible as Beijing pushes for tariff relief. North Korea's recent diplomacy has leaned heavily on Moscow, with Pyongyang even dispatching troops to fight in Russia's war against Ukraine. That move strained relations with Beijing, which supports Russia economically, but has opposed steps that risk widening the conflict. Still, recent revelations suggest that China has been providing non-insufficient military support to Russia, including with drones. And two, trade between China and North Korea has surged this year. Diplomatic exchanges have resumed after the lull. Indeed, some analysts believe that the surge in trade could simply represent Beijing sending more support to Russia via North Korea. Next Wednesday, at an event marking the end of the bloodiest war in the history of our species, the world will be watching and hoping that the seeds for an even more catastrophic sequel have not been planted. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Saturday, have a restful weekend, and I will see you for a new week of developments on Monday.